Welcome to our second conversation of the cycle Zoom In on Masters, organized by the Intercultural Institute for Comparative Music Studies. Topic of today's meeting is another project that is very important in our 2020 programs that we had to postpone to the COVID lockdown. The music of the Syrian tradition, and in particular the classical vocal style from Aleppo. It is a project that is very dear to us and that we had planned to organize for a number of years. I remember talking about this with the late Julien Weiss and Gilles Kepel already long time ago. One main reason for which we think this project is important is that the classical style of Syrian music is one of the most significant and cosmopolitan achievements of Arab music and culture, with a long and rich history that deserves to be better known. Another important reason for organizing this event is that we wanted to draw attention to what Syrian musicians are experiencing in a time of war, some of them remaining in their country, enduring great difficulties, some other forced to migrate to Europe or to other Arab countries. Everything now made even more problematic due to the virus emergency that prevents musical live performances. To lead our conversation will be again Professor Giovanni De Zorzi, who teaches ethnomusicology at the University of Venice, expert of this field, author of a recently published book on maqām, in which the historical depth and the cultural importance of Syrian classical music since the Umayyad courts onwards through the centuries are well presented and discussed. Stay with us till the end because we have a very nice surprise. And I would like to introduce a salute by the well-known singer Omar Sarmini directly from Syria.
أهلا وسهلا بكم أحبائي. أنا عمر سرميني المطرب السوري، أحييكم من حلب الشهباء. أنا بخير والحمد لله. طبعا في هذه الظروف الصعبة التي تمر بها سوريا وجائحة كورونا، أتقدم بالشكر لمؤسسة تشيني على دعوتها لفرقة الكندي للمشاركة هذا العام، ولكن للأسف الشديد وفي ظل الظروف التي يمر بها العالم أجمع لم نستطع الحضور في الشهر الخامس وفي الموعد المحدد، على أمل أن نلتقي وإياكم في أقرب فرصة إن شاء الله. لكم مني كل التحية ولكل المنظمين وكل المشاركين في مؤسسة تشيني، ودمتم بألف خير. محبكم عمر سرميني، في أمان الله، مع السلامة.
It's a great honor to introduce to you Madame Sabine Châtel, manager of the Al-Kindi ensemble, and I would like to ask Sabine Châtel about the composition of the ensemble and to have a presentation of the concert, the musicians, and then I will ask her to introduce our two musician guests, Khadija El Afrit, that we just listened at the beginning on Plakat Zaitha qānūn, and Adel Shamsuddin on frame drum, riqq. So welcome, Sabine.
Good morning, Giovanni. Thank you very much. First, I'd like to thank, of course, the Fondazione for the invitation that we had for the Ensemble Al-Kindi. We are very sad that we couldn't come in April, but we really hope that this whole project will be realized in the next year.
Inshallah.
We are very happy that we have at least this occasion to be together and to talk about this great music and this amazing project and this beautiful musician. Talking about Al-Kindi, it is a musical ensemble that is very specific because it was founded by French musicians, which is not an unusual thing for an Arabic music ensemble. And so it has been created by the late Jalaluddin Weiss, musician born in 1953 and who very sadly passed away in 2015. I've been working with the ensemble since the 90s, since 1993, and Julian has founded his ensemble in 83. the idea about Al-Kindi was really to create it as a what we call a taqāsim, which is like the really classical music ensemble, like a very small formation. Which was opposite to the big ensemble that we have known in Arabic music, the one that we can find with Kulthum, with this big orchestra with lots of violins. And Julian really wanted to go back to the roots of Arabic music, with just the very specific and very traditional elements of the ensemble, which was the flute, the nai, the oud, the lute, and the percussion, this very small percussion, the riqq. And as a French musician, it was a very big challenge, especially in the 80s. Now it's more usual to French people or Italian or German musician to travel to Syria or the Middle East place and to work with musicians. We can even do it on the web.
As far as I know, the example of Julien Jalaluddin Weiss was inspiring to a lot of Western musicians. I mean, examples from Italy and from Germany. And so it was also moving from this point of view.
Definitely, because back in the days, we were talking about the 80s, even like the late 70s, that was not as usual. And no. Julian was really like, he was a classical guitarist. And for him, to work on, to discover and to learn about Arabic music, he had to go completely. He said oud was too easy as a classical guitarist. So he decided to go to the qānūn. And he decided also to work with the best musicians. From this, he decided to travel. And he went to Egypt, he went to Iraq, he learned with the master, the incredible Munir Bashir, and he ended in Syria, where really he thought that was the nest. I mean, the major part of all this music, of this traditional music, where everything finally has gathered, like influences from Turkey and Ottoman, from Iraq, from Persia, and of course from Egypt. So he was spending his time between Syria and France, and at the beginning he met the great master of the riqq, Adel Shamseldin, who we'll have the pleasure to hear after. And Adel was really like the first musician in the ensemble. Then he met other musicians that we are really lucky to still be working with, Ziad Qadi with the great and the master really of the riqq from Syria, from Damascus. And then he met Mohammed Kadri Dalal with this also great master from Aleppo who plays the oud. So really those three men with Julian, so for really they constituted an incredible ensemble. And the four of them, they really worked on different repertoire, which were going from Iraq music to classical or Sufi music, and of course all the repertoire that we did with the whirling dervishes of Damascus. So as a manager, I really can say that we've been touring all over the world with this amazing performances with the whirling dervishes of Damascus. First of all, with Hamzi Shakur, with Sheikh Hamzi Shakur, who also unfortunately and very sadly passed away in 2002 or 3. And then also with the Sheikh Haboush, we did this amazing Sufi trance from Aleppo. And all these performances were presented in very, really, like in the Fest Festival, in Théâtre de la Ville in Paris, in Italy, everywhere. So personally, I've been really blessed, and I'm so lucky that I could share this experience with those great musicians and singers. Since Julian has passed away, we really try to keep on this work that has been done incredibly. Then, of course, when we decided to go on with the ensemble, the very key question was who will play the qānūn? And that was a very, very important question for us, because Julian's presence was so emblematic and so important for us. And I'm really grateful for Adel because he brought this amazing idea of introducing a female qānūn singer, Khadija, who I love, and she's an amazing performer. And she's she's infusing really, like Julian was doing, being a French, you know, it was already some a different element from this male ensemble, and I think it's very important. And she's bringing all the thing, another sensibility, another feeling, another approach of the music, and I think it's really important. So that's a new era for us. So now presenting all the musicians that hopefully will be in Venezia next year. Of course, I will start with Omar Sarmini. Omar is a singer from Aleppo. He was born and raised in Aleppo. He grew up in a religious surrounding, like most of the musicians and singers from this. We met him the first time as Julian offered him to play on the Aleppian music room. So Omar was really the young challenger with this amazing old master who was Sabrim Dallal. And they were competing on the stage, and that was a duo that nobody had forgot because it was so beautiful. With this young voice, Omar was 30 years old at the time, and Omar and Sabrim Dallal was 80, and they were singing together, and it was just amazing performance with all the musicians together. Since then, we created another program with him that was the Crusades under the from the Arabic viewpoint, which was Julian's idea to present the poetry from the time of the Crusades. Through all the years that we've been living, like since the war and everything, we've still been in contact, and we still see that he was living there and making his life in Aleppo. It was it's very, very hard for everybody. And we really look forward to meet him again in Venezia next year, because it's very important for everybody. Ziad Kadiamin, our great flutist, he lives in Damascus. He always lived there. He was the pupil of Abdel Salam Safar, who was one of the greatest, also master of the flute. Ziad has a very special thing, is that he made his own flute. He really built them. So he's not only known as a great flutist, but he's also known as a beautiful and very skillful flute maker. Mohammed Kadr Dallal, Mohammed is also a great master, born in Aleppo. I think it was really hard for him, but he moved from Aleppo during the war. And now he lives in Alexandria, in Alexandria, in Egypt. Mohammed has been. He really worked with Julian on the specific repertoire of Aleppo. He has an amazing knowledge of this repertoire of the muashahat, of the qasida, of all the improvisation, and he really plays in the very old traditional style of the city, which is a little austere, but very, very inspired and beautiful. He was a teacher at the music school in Aleppo. He has, and he was doing a lot of concerts in solo also, because it is, following the way that Munir Bashir has given to all the oud player, he was also playing as a soloist. Then Adel Shamseldin, of course, our great friend and master. Julian met him when they were both in Paris, and Adel, born in Alexandria, is Egyptian, and he decided, he started, I think, a career of an engineer. Maybe this is where he learned about the rhythm and the cycles and the mathematic things, and he moved to Paris, and then he met Julian, and since then they've been companionship for, so many years, 30 years. We've been all over the world together and traveling and experiencing with so many musicians. He's on all the CDs of Al-Kindi. Julian used to say that he didn't need a metronome because he had always Adele right on the beat and nobody could could defeat him, and that nobody knows so many complex rhythm as Adele knows. So it's we're really happy that we can still work together and be there. Yeah, and now so the newcomer Khadija, qānūn player, she is Tunisian, so that's also the specificity of Al-Kindi, is that because Julian was already non-Arabic and non-coming from a specific city in Middle East, he didn't mind of having elements from different places. So it wasn't a problem for him to bring someone from Azerbaijan or from Iraq and to play Syrian music. So that was, since the musicians were good, no matter where they come from. So we're happy now that we have Adele from Egypt and Tunisian woman playing the qānūn and playing those Syrian repertoire. So Khadija is born in Sousse and she is a musicologist. She studied at the university. She has a doctor in musicology and she moved now to France. So she lives in Strasbourg, in east of France. So that's the ensemble Al-Kindi. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabine. Thank you also for introducing the musicians, but also some themes that will be explored in the second part of our meeting concerning the value of maqām art music as a transnational music. And I will move again to the beautiful music made by a duo by Khadija Al-Afrit on qānūn and Adel Shamsuddin on riqq. And they will play for us a Samā. The Samā is a dance tune in 10/8 in maqām Bayatī. So Samā Bayatī qadīm. Qadīm means ancient. And welcome Khadija, welcome Adel, and we are listening all for you. Thank you. after this beautiful duo, I would like to ask and to focus on Adel Shamsuddin, and I would like to ask him to illustrate the program, the repertoire that would have been and that will be played in the future during the concert.
Thank you, Giovanni. Our program is based, like all the program of our concerts, of the system of wasla. Wasla, that means a suite or a group of songs and instrumental pieces from one scale or one maqām. So we have two maqāms in this program. There is Bayatī and there is Hijaz. And each maqām we have different pieces, different kind of pieces. We have, of course, we have improvisation of each musician alone, and also improvisation vocal from the singer. And we have pieces composed like Samā or Bashraf or other pieces. And of course, there is the songs, where is the muwashshahat. So we have these items in each wasla. For first wasla is Bayatī and the second one is Hijaz. And of course, we will see in later example of the improvisation, vocal improvisation from Omar Sarmini, and also improvisation, we heard improvisation from Khadija. And I'm again going to make some piece also in, with my instrument, the riqq. And of course, the most important thing in this program that we had in Arabic Oriental music, we had before a lot of rhythms, cycles. So we had many, I can say hundreds, but we didn't use it anymore. So we try to collect in this program the maximum we can put of cycles. So we have, for example, we have 32 over 2 kinds. One is Brafshan or Warshan, and the second one is Sittashar Masri, and we have 16 is Mukhammas, and many kinds we play in this part for the muwashshahat, of course. And when I'm going to play a little solo, I try to present these rhythms for you. But this is the main idea of our program: 2 wasla, Bayatī, and the Hijaz, and of course, including the improvisations and.
I will introduce Massimiliano Trentin, which is from University of Bologna, Italy. He's a professor of history and international relations of the Middle East and the Mediterranean area. And I would ask to Massimiliano Trentin, let's say, to illustrate, to give us a short overview of the recent political situation in Syria from the past until the present.
Thank you, Giovanni. And first of all, thank you for the invitation to this such an amazing event and an opportunity, even for me. And shukran jazilan, shukran. Of course, it's quite hard to try to make a synthesis of such very important events that have shaken our beloved Syria since the recent years. So, as one scholar just dealing with the contemporary history of Syria, of what is called the Middle East as well as the Mediterranean, because we're all Bahr al-Mutawassit, we're all within the Mediterranean, as I continue to argue. And I would just illustrate some of the key features that this recent conflict that started in 2011 and is still continuing have demonstrated. It's the basic feature of this conflict that started again in February 2011 and still continues is its multidimensional aspect. That is, where the different cleavages, the different actors concerned in this conflict, the different driving forces, and not only in terms of institutions, states, or groups, but the drive is even the rational, where there is social, political, territorial, national, regional, international one. They were all present since the very beginning, all together, all at once. And this multidimensional gathering of different factors and actors has made the conflict so even difficult to understand from within and from without the country. So even so difficult even to tackle and to work out and even to imagine some sustainable solutions to it. And what is the reason for such a complexity? And the reason goes back to the very basic elements of Syria, at least, of course, of what I call the treasure of Syria, al-Taru al-Suri. That is the plurality of its people. The plurality, I repeat, of its people, namely where single individuals with their own stories, with their own aspirations, they are closely connected to such a large, extended, and thick set of communities. And I repeat, not just one exclusive community, but very different at the very same moment within the very same individual. And these communities, these allegiances to different communities are both recent ones. Let's think of the flourishing of the participation to local groupings or even online social media groupings just before and during the conflict. But some of these communities goes back to the history, to the ancient history of those territories called Syria. There are communities that are anchored within the roots of the very civilizations of the Mediterranean. Again, we're all back for Bahr al-Mutawassit. And the problem is that and Syria is not exceptional to anything. As I teach my students, it's not an exception to anything. Is the fact that wars and conflict tend to flatten down or to the differences, to conflate the multiple identities or multiple agents to just one. And this causes much suffering, this legitimizes much violence. But if history helps understanding one thing about Syria, and I repeat the whole of the Mediterranean, is that those efforts at flattening down the plurality have never succeeded. They have never succeeded. They cause much suffering, but they have never succeeded. And that's the history of Aleppo. That's the history of Damascus. Otherwise, they would not have survived for millennia. That's the point. And then the other point of the complexity of the war in Syria, the conflict in Syria, is that the world has always been in Syria, as Syria has always been in the world. That is, Syria has never been a territory isolated from outside. Syria has always been closely connected to the flows of people, goods, and ideas, stretching throughout from Europe to Asia, from Africa, and go back to the north. That's the history of those territories. And well, music is just an evidence, the proven fact of this, the transnational features of those territories and of the very basic elements of their culture. And what is music if not culture? And these again explain why, again, since the very beginning, local grievances, local conflicts, and even local reasons for confrontation, let's say, as well as cooperation, have assumed a regional and an international dimensions. That at a certain times even seemed to drive the very conduct of the war and the very fate or ultimate outcomes of the war. But I really think that again the ultimate fate of Syria will be back at the hands of those living there, but not in isolated context, but just as much as in an integrated space where Syria has always being part of. And that was the treasury, the complexity, but at this very same time, the treasury of Syria. And Aleppo is just a focus on all of this. Of course, all the studies I've made were just more located more in Damascus, but I enjoyed so much when I traveled north to Aleppo, and so we're all hope that within though the conflict is still ongoing, we'll all hope it will end as soon as possible. First of all, for the sake of Syrians within and without the country. And if talks about reconstruction, of course, focus on the material reconstruction, and we all need material reconstruction as well. There is another aspect of the concept and the practice of reconstructions, which is the reconstructions of those connections between people at the social level that builds up again spaces for commonality, for a shared knowledge of the common spaces, which is the hallmark, again, of not just of Syria, but of all our Mediterranean space. And thank you.
Thank you, Massimiliano. There is a theme that is emerging, very important value, intangible value of the transnational contributions of which are evident and clearly audible in Syrian maqām, that resent of many different influences And Aleppo, from this point of view, is a cultural core and musical core. And thank you also for putting this in a clear perspective, also reconnecting all to the words of Sabine Châtel at the beginning. But having this chance, I would like to have an observer, a direct observer on the field. I would like to ask to Adel Shamsuddin what he can say about the situations of musicians in Syria nowadays.
Actually, it's not so good for many reasons. Of course, first reason is the war there. Before the war, all the musicians, they had work in the radio or the TV or the for marriage or something, or everywhere they had feasts and they have work for the musicians. Starting from the war, it was very, very bad situation, so that many musicians I know, they left Syria, and it will be very difficult to reconstitute all the people they were there, to make them go back to Syria. I know musicians here in France, in Paris. I know, for example, in Germany, some of them, they went to Spain, also in Italy. I know that there is many there. I can't say how many of them they left to Turkey or to Egypt or to Iraq. But now the situation there, especially now with the COVID-19 problem, it's worse. So everything is closed. And it's not only for the musicians, it's also for the population. They have a lot of problem with this COVID-19. I hope they will recover very, very soon, and we can then continue to work with all of them, and they will go back to their country, because they are very, very unhappy, and we are very sad to leave their countries like that in this situation. And I'm sure that any time it will be peaceful to come back, they will be back.
Thank you, Adele. Always on the principle to alternate words with music, I would like to ask you if you can play for us something on your frame drum riqq, and to introduce by yourself what you are going to play and the instrument you play.
The instrument is the riqq, and it's a frame, circular frame with cells all around, and with a fish skin. That's a traditional one with the fish skin. And it was the instrument always used in the traditional music for centuries. And now, for the moment, is a little bit start to disappear, because we have the idea of the big groups. Now we continue with Al-Kindi to use only one percussion. When I started playing in Egypt, it was only one percussionist for the group. It was always the riqq. So the riqq, we can play many things. I'll try to play some cycles from the CD, from the program we are going to play, because I have, normally in the program, I have a solo.
Thank you, Adele. Thank you very much. And as introduced by Giovanni Giuriati at the very beginning, we have an amazing surprise. Omar Sarmini, the great singer, sent us an improvisation on mobile phone and was joined by Khadija on qānūn. So we are going to listen to a short improvisation in Rast maqām. Thank you.
ولقد خلوت مع الحبيب وبيننا سر أرق من النسيم إذا سرى ولقد خلوت مع الحبيب وبيننا سر أرق من النسيم إذا سرى فدهشت بين جماله وجلاله وغدا لسان الحال عني مخبرا.
From this beautiful music, we move to again to Sabine Chattel, the manager of the ensemble Kindi, who spent many years on the field, and she's herself a specialist in music of Aleppo. And I would like to ask her about this topic that emerged during this conversation on the transnational, transcultural, intercultural value of art, classical music, maqām, and about the central position of Aleppo.
If you allow me, I would just like to say how moving it is for us to hear Omar's voice playing from Aleppo with Khadija in Strasbourg. Actually, you have to know they never met. Like, it's really the first meeting together online without seeing each other. It's just an incredible thing, and thank you for the technology to allow us to do this kind of miracle, you know. It's so hopefully the next time they really meet and play together, it will be in Venezia. So we really hope and pray for that. Thank you. Also, I would like to refer to what Massimilio says about the Syria and the old cultures, and I think this is really interesting, also from a musical point of view. One of the reasons why Julian Weiss went to and settled in, first of all, in Syria, and then after why he chose to settle in Aleppo, it's really because he found that the really traditional music and knowledge about the muashahat and the classical and sacred music, Arabic music, were still alive and still played in this country. So the country was completely closed. And I remember the first time I went with Julian in Aleppo in '94, it was like, I mean, you could tell that the country was the same for the past 50 years. And the people were living the same way. And basically, Julian found out that the way the people were still working and playing on the music, everything was still there. It was like being completely conserved, which is interesting because hearing Adele saying that everybody is traveling now, you can tell that all this knowledge will be, being mixed with other things. The musicians are traveling with their music and with their repertoire and with their art, and they will be mixing with other influences. So I don't say it's wrong or bad or it's good, or it's just something else that is happening now, is that this really conservatory of music and knowledge that was in Aleppo will be spreading out and becoming something else. So yeah, and so the what I was saying about Damascus and Aleppo is that you had different ways of doing the music. For instance, and this is one of the reasons why we recorded Sufi repertoire from Damascus and the Sufi repertoire from Aleppo. They're completely different. Musicians, they play differently, they sing differently, they have different, and they basically fight between each other. Even the dresses of the whirling dervishes are not the same. Damascus, they're shorter, but they dance more rapidly. In Aleppo, they're more close to the Ottoman one. And everybody thinks that they have the right one. And Julian, as a French person, he didn't care. He didn't care about, okay, who is playing the best? I mean, he wanted to have the good quality and to have like this trace of all this music, not being non-national of either Aleppo or Damascus. He wasn't in the game, he wasn't in the fight. So he really tried to find the best elements everywhere, and the first time actually Kadri Dallal from Aleppo played with Ziad Kadiamin from Damascus. That was something, because never before a musician from Aleppo was playing in the same ensemble with someone from Damascus. About this transnationality and the things that being French and I'm not a musicologist, I'm really like a music producer. I love working with musicians, and my work is really to bring this music and this art that I love to to listeners, whoever they are. So what I found very interesting and very challenging in Al-Kindi's music and the way Julian was bringing this music, because the music is so good and the instruments and the musicians are so on such a high level, you cannot listen to it without being touched. And that was the good thing, and that was the thing that help us to bring this music to the best audiences in Europe. And Julian was, of course, this element that helped the Western audiences to pay attention to this Arabic music that they were kind of considered, not that interesting. Maybe the music of that we present is on the same scale of classical Western music. We work with musicians who are they can read scores. They I know Kutsi on this discussion that we've seen was talking also about the things that, should we or not read scores? Arabic music, they can write the scores, and everybody in the ensemble, they write and they read the music, and they also are very good improvisators. But Julian was also telling them and working with them on going to the most difficult parts and the most difficult repertoire and prelude and instrumental preludes. His work was to say, in the past people think, oh, no, we don't play this instrumental music prelude. It's too long. People will get bored. They will go out. No. They're not, we're talking to people who have ears, and they will be happy to listen for 4 minutes, of instrumental prelude. If it's good and if it's well played, that's the thing. And if the musician feels to play an improvisation for 5 minutes, go ahead, take your time, do it. And like in the jazz, like in, all this music. And that's really the good thing the incredible thing that I found out working with Al-Kindi is that we have musicians who enjoy being together, working, playing together, and and sharing this art with the audience.
So thank you, Sabine, for this portrait full of colors and shades, and not only transnational but also from world and to the reactions of different public. And as we opened with Khadija El Afrit, we are closing also with Khadija again. She lives in Strasbourg, and she plays a lot in Europe and in the world. So I will ask her about the situation nowadays of maqām, of art, music in Europe and in France, and her experience as a musician in Europe.
Thank you, Giovanni, for this opportunity to talk about music and about Syrian music and Arab music, our art. I will, in the beginning, talk about Syrian music. It has really its audience, its public in Europe, and also its students or Europe students. It's music called by natural and living. This music is near to man, regardless of his difference of culture. And maqām music is very successful here in Europe, especially when it comes to improvisation. People here or here when we are in concerts, when I play with Al-Kindi, they come just when we finish concert, and they say, "Wow, it's very beautiful. We don't know how it happened, but we are very happy to hear you." And there's something spiritual. There's something who make them very happy to hear our music. And in general, the public loves to listen to vocal and instrumental improvisation, and find that our music is very, very touch, very natural, very near to man, to human. And I'm very, very happy to be in Europe. I have my culture with me, and I can give the audience pleasure to hear our music and our art.
Thank you, Khadija, and I would like to thank all the participants and for their passions, and to thank also Simone Tarsitani, who is directing this wonderful series, and Sabrina Marenko and Chiara Picardi for the great job on all the practical aspects of a concert. There is a lot of work beneath a concert, and Giovanni Giuriati, Khadija Dell'Afrit, Sabine Chatel, Massimiliano Trentin, Adel Shamsuddin, Simone Tarsitani, Sabrina, Chiara. For the moment, we will consolate ourselves with our recorded music, and so see you later in a while in the physical presence. So thank you, everybody, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you
Okay.
soon.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
ما أطيب ما بتنا معا في بردي إذ لاصق خده